Clinical trials are the backbone of medical innovation, but with them comes a critical responsibility of ensuring safety and rights of the human participants. One of the most sensitive areas in clinical research is what happens when a participant experiences a serious adverse event or an SAE. Did you know in many countries there are well defined guidelines, ethics committee rules, and regulatory framework that mandate compensation for participants in case of any trial related harm? But who decides if the event is trial related? How is the compensation amount determined? What are the legal and ethical responsibilities of sponsors and investigators? In this video, we'll break down everything you need to know about compensation in case of a serious adverse event in clinical trials and all the activities that encompass it. So, if you are a clinical research professional, a student, or someone curious about patient safety and how it is carried out in clinical research, stay tuned till the end. Please make sure that you subscribe to the channel for such amazing content. Without further ado, let's start. So let us begin understanding the process of compensation in case of an SAE. Now, as you know, SAE stands for serious adverse event. So in clinical trial, there are six major definition or terminologies for a serious adverse event. If you are unaware of what exactly an SAE is, I'll add a link in the description so that you can check out and understand the concept of SAE first before coming to this video. So I would request you to check that video first so that you have a better understanding. Now let us try and understand how does the compensation work in case of an SAE. So as you all know that there are six major criteria of an serious adverse event. If the participant who is in clinical trial meets any of those criteria, then the SAE is triggered. Okay, and this particular SAE report timeline has been previously covered in detail. Okay, so there is a 24-hour timeline and there is a 14-day timeline. So you need to understand how that particular timeline works. Now when it comes to compensation, that compensation can be due to a serious harm or an injury, or unfortunately if the subject dies in your clinical trial. So that particular compensation is clearly defined in case of an SAE as per Rule 122 DAB, which is stated in the Schedule Y of Drugs and Cosmetic Act of 1945. Okay, so the compensation process and all the activities remains the same, only the formula changes from one country to another. Okay, so for this particular video, for a understanding, I have considered the Indian Regulatory Authority, that is CDSCO. That is why we are discussing the Rule 122 DAB of Schedule Y of Drugs and Cosmetic Act of 1945, Government of India. Okay, so whenever we are speaking about compensation in case of SAE, we are going to refer to this particular rule 122 DAB. Now, what is the formula as per this rule? So, SAE composition formula as per this rule is B into F into R divided by 99.37. Okay. Now, let us understand each and every component. So, when I say B, I mean the base amount. Okay. So, the base amount as per Indian regulation, for example, has been kept 8 lakh rupees. Okay. So, that is your base amount. F is the factor. Okay. And this factor is dependent on the age of the subject based on the Workmen Compensation Act. Okay. Then we come to R. R is the risk factor. So risk factor depending upon the seriousness and severity of the disease, that is the SAE term, and the presence of any comorbidities and the duration of the disease that the subject has been affected, as well as the time of enrollment in clinical trial. Now this particular risk factor ranges from 0.5 to 4. Okay, and when you multiply the base amount, the factor of the age, as well as the risk factor, and when you divide it by 99.37, that formula generates the quantum amount of the serious adverse event. Now again you will ask, what is 99.37? Then this particular constant has been derived, which is specific to the age factor of someone who is aged 65 or above. Okay, and that also has its origin in Workmen Compensation Act. Okay, and that particular act gives a proper table which gives the factor depending upon age. So in this particular formula, for example, we have considered the age of the subject, for example, who is passed away. okay, who had a age, for example, 66. So again, 65 and above, the factor would be 99.37. But for example, if the participant is of the lower age, that is age 62, okay, then the differentiating factor would be 110.14. Okay, so always remember that the quantum of the compensation, the formula would vary depending upon your age, the risk factor, and the severity of the disease. Okay, so whenever, if anyone asks you about the formula for an SAE, a lot of people know B into F into R upon 99.37, but when they ask you to define each of the element, that is what does B stand for, F stand for, and what does R risk factor stand for, and what is the scale of the risk factor, so you need to know it goes from 0.5 to 4. Okay, so we need not go into the detail of the factors and the complexity, but essentially you need to know how the formula is and how it is derived and which particular act are referred whenever coming on to this particular formula. Now we know what the formula of an SAE compensation is, but do you know what is the process where the compensation is decided? Okay, who decides that this particular thing deserves a compensation? What is the process of it? So let us understand that. So I have made this particular illustration where it clearly defines all the process along with the respective timelines, that from the start of the SAE to the end of the compensation. Okay, so I have defined that. So we will understand that step by step. Okay, so first and foremost, as per Indian regulation, whenever you have a particular SAE within 24 hours, okay, it is the responsibility of the investigator to inform. Now, investigator will inform to whom? They will inform to the chairman of the ethics committee, to the sponsor themselves, as well as to the regulatory authority. That is DCGI in this case. Okay, the CDSO is the body and the head is DCGI. Next thing is, again, it is the responsibility of the sponsor also to inform the regulatory authority. Okay, to the chairman of the ethics committee and to the head of the institution, that is the head of the hospital or the institute. Okay, that is 24-hour responsibility. Again, after 24 hours we have the 14 days responsibility. Again, after 14 days, the sponsor and the investigator will inform the status of an SAE. Okay, the follow-up SAE to the DCGI, ethics committee, and head of institution. Okay, now what the DCGI does is, after that 14 days report, they would send this particular SAE, okay, to the expert committee. Okay, this particular expert committee is appointed by DCGI. Okay, they would examine this particular SAE report and recommend to the licensing authority, that is DCGI, within 30 days. Okay, so within 30 days after receiving the recommendation for the quantum of SAE, the expert committee has 30 days to respond. Okay, after 30 days, the expert committee would analyze the report, and within 60 days of the receipt of the report, they would recommend quantum of compensation. Okay, so within 30 days the report should go to the expert committee, and within 60 days the expert committee should come up with a quantum of compensation. Okay, once the quantum of compensation is given by the expert committee, then the DCGI gives the final decision, including what should be the compensation amount and if they should be or not within 150 days of the occurrence of SC. Okay, so again, the DCGI or the CDSCO regulatory authority has a timeline of 150 days. 150 days not from the expert committee report but from the start of the SC. Okay, so within 150 days the DCGI has to decide what should be the compensation amount. Okay, once the DCGI decides the compensation amount, they would again inform this particular to the sponsor. Okay, now the sponsor is responsible to compensate or provide the compensation of the SAE to the next of kin or the person designated by the subject within 30 days of the receipt of order of DCGI. Okay, so once the DCGI contacts the sponsor within 30 days, they have to submit the compensation via a check amount, okay, to the next of kin or designated person. Okay, then the sponsor, or even the CRO, if assigned by the sponsor, will contact the patient nominee and they would give the compensation. Okay, so you need to understand in this all process that what are the timelines. Okay, so if anyone asks you what is the sponsor timeline to provide compensation, then it is 30 days from the DCGI's order to compensate. But for DCGI to come up with the final decision on compensation, it is 150 days from the occurrence of an SAE. Okay, so this is also one of the most amazing aspect of the regulatory workings of CDSO, that they have a set timelines. Okay, and again, who comes up with the compensation amount or who recommends the quantum of compensation? Now understand here, the word quantum of compensation is very important. Okay, so in this particular year, the word of quantum of compensation is important because this particular committee, that is expert committee, is the one who comes up with that particular number, that particular quantum. Okay, so if anyone asks you who is responsible for the quantum of compensation in case of an SAE, then it is the expert committee. Okay, that is constituted by the DCGI. Okay, so always remember that when it comes to a serious adverse event, the expert committee takes 60 days to analyze all the SAE and come up with a compensation, that is quantum of compensation. Okay, so this is the entire process of compensation in case of an SAE. You can pause this video, look at the timelines and the detail. Okay, and this is one of the question that even I recently got in my interview also. That is why I gathered all the information so that I can keep you guys updated of it. So thank you for watching this video till the end. Please make sure that you subscribe to the channel if I have been able to help you, and keep watching the videos. Thank you.